Yeah, brother, I'd be happy to. I mean, Wanderlei Silva is not a street fighter, right? He may have been at one time in his life, but he's had a lot of fame for a lot of years. I've said this for a long time. The fight game, you have to have the discipline of a Buddhist monk, right? The street, you don't have to have any discipline at all. You just have to be a complete and absolute savage with no mercy and willing to do anything. And street fight melees, like he was in that ring, anybody's a victim, right? Like there's no one person who can say, "Oh, I'm the toughest guy." You get a bunch of guys up against you swinging, you're just a number waiting to fall. So my personal opinion is this: I know a lot of fighters like to take their air of the street. I know a lot of fighters came from the street, right? But if they had stayed at the street, their outcome would have been prison. I went to prison myself twice, right? What fighters do is they get into fighting because it saves their lives, and they get out of it, and they get out of bad situations. And I believe that Wanderlei made the most of his God-given talents, not by becoming a drug runner in the favelas, right, but instead by becoming an MMA fighter and one of the greatest of all time. That having been said, what broke out in that melee after that boxing match was a street fight. Now let's talk about the boxing match a little too. Acelino Freitas was an excellent fighter, right? They actually made the mistake of putting him up against, God, who was it? That kid from Tijuana and the Coahuila. Oh, God, his name escaped me. This is so Eric Morales. They made the mistake of putting him up against Eric Morales. I think the fight was in China. And, of course, Eric Morales tooled him up. Well, it's one thing to be 40-2 from Brazil. It's quite another thing to be a world-class boxer from Tijuana. I also think the body types and the styles were not a good matchup for Freitas. What is my point in all this? Freitas was beating up Wanderlei because Wanderlei is not a boxer. Just like Wanderlei is no longer a street fighter, if he ever was. I'm sure he was a really tough guy, right? So, we as fans, as people who love the sport, we have idols and everything, we put things on our heroes that they cannot do. Like, we think Wanderlei will kill anyone in the street. Well, that's not true. And most street fights aren't one-on-one by definition. So, what I think happened to Wanderlei that night was awakening of sorts, right? Fighters get protected to a certain degree, right? They train really hard in the gym in a controlled environment, then they have fights, if they advance, great, and their egos get bigger and bigger. But what happens is they become protected in an insular world. They suddenly start thinking they're the toughest guys in the world. Why? Because everybody tells them they are, right? But I got news for you. There's nobody in the world tougher than the street. And when the street steps in, it can break anybody. It's just a matter of the circumstance of what happened. And Wanderlei got broken by a guy in a tuxedo. Acelino Freitas' son, from what I understand. And there he is. Look at his eye. What can I tell you? Don't street fight, kids. Everybody like and follow for more on the fight.